Hello, welcome. My name is Anna Maria Sacconi. I'm a PhD student and researcher at St. Louis University, and I'm here to talk to you about the role of technology in human trafficking. Human trafficking is a very important problem in today's society. It pretty much happens in every country, in every region. There are, according to the International Labor Office, in 2016, there were about 40 million victims, which means every 1,000 people, there were 4.5 victims around the globe. Human trafficking itself involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of exploitation, such as labor or commercial sexual exploitation, or when the victim is underage or 18 years or less. Unfortunately, regarding the victims and the consequences of trafficking, it is just catastrophic. There's all kinds of physical and psychological problems and trauma that can present themselves after exploitation. Victims can have all kinds of diseases, clinical depression, anxiety type disorders, and it has pretty much been declared a public health problem. So what does this have to do with technology and the topic of our conference today? Well, technology actually plays a crucial role in both the exploitation and the rescue of victims. On the exploitation side, technology has been seen to be used in all kinds of different aspects of exploitation. For example, in the recruitment and grooming process, social media is often utilized by traffickers to find and recruit and groom victims. In the sale and purchase of victims, we can also see technology being present with the help of online ads and all kinds of different technologies. Sextortion can also be part of it when all kinds of inappropriate content may be collected from victims and then they are threatened to be published so that unless they do certain kinds of acts. The dark web and encryption procedures play a crucial role in all of this, especially when we're talking about the different transactions online and the traffickers to avoid detection. Finally, in financial transactions, we've also seen technology to show up more and more when we're talking about cryptocurrency and all kinds of different digital methods for payment. Now, on the plus side, so on the law enforcement and rescue side, we're also seeing the use of technology in various aspects. For example, law enforcement has been really on the forefront of utilizing different technologies to locate victims and offenders equally. Digital forensics are used in investigations for various financial transactions. Even location histories we have the ability to collect those so that all kinds of investigations can help us build better cases so that we don't have to put the victims through recounting all of those experiences in court. Instead, we have facts and data to support the cases. Messaging, all those other tools can be used for these similar purposes. Social media analysis could be another tool that has been analyzed or used to find different types of activities online. Big data analysis and data mining can also fall into that, but just all kinds of big data that's available, some of which I have been using as well for my research interests. And finally, AI and machine learning is something that has been already popping up in different areas. For example, with image recognition, for example, Thorn has been doing amazing activities with the help of image recognition of locating victims and their faces from comparing different online ads with missing persons reports. And then Trafficking, which is developed actually with one of my dissertation advisors. She worked on this for the last couple of years. They developed a Trafficking, which is a hotel image recognition software that allows users to upload images to this application, and then that has the ability to match and identify which hotel locations the victims may be in. They're comparing all kinds of different advertisements and databases with also user-generated images to be able to locate where these exploitations happen. Regarding my own research about the role of technology in trafficking, my two main interests are obviously around these two main aspects of technology. So first of all, how do we stay ahead of criminals and prevent traffickers from using technology for exploitation? Which in my area would also include building overall just safer online communities, which would mean, going as far as policies and processes and prevention. And then on the other side, how do we build and use technology to prevent and rescue victims from exploitation? So both the positive and the negative side of technology. I'm trying to do this in a multidisciplinary format. Since trafficking is such a complex problem, it does require a holistic multidisciplinary effort. We're talking about the different tools and technologies that play an important role in the exploitation. Also, policies, laws, and regulations, and how we deal with those to make sure the victims are protected. There's also sociological and psychological implications. So if we're thinking about the aspects of social engineering and how victims are targeted and just the nature of victimhood and the overall grooming process, those are very important aspects as well. Of also the economics and the financial transactions and markets, as it relates to, for example, the complexities of the different market drivers, why somebody would become a victim, what are those different drivers behind it, how the traffickers can benefit and why do they really benefit. And obviously the financial transactions that happen more and more in the digital realm. And then finally, the criminal justice and human rights side, when we're really thinking about how we prosecute, how we protect these people that may fall victim to this exploitation. There are a couple of different projects that I have been engaged in to study these different questions. So the first big project that we've just completed and was recently published is me and my co-authors have been looking at leveraging big data to provide insights into trafficking patterns. In this research, we use machine learning to analyze publicly available data sets from the Counter Trafficking Data Collaborative, which is this is a open publicly available data set that anybody can download. It's a collaboration from different organizations and institutions across the globe. Our goal was to uncover patterns in trafficking behaviors and victim characteristics to aid anti-trafficking and prevention efforts, programs, and policies. The two main goals that we try to look at was to understand the differences between A, the gender, and B, the types of exploitation the victims may face. So the gender, we mean male versus female, and what the how the gender can affect the different aspects of trafficking, which could be really useful in, for example, predictions to aid anti-trafficking efforts. On the other hand, from when we're thinking of exploitation and what kind of exploitation the victim may face, we were hoping to use this for more on the prioritization of the rescue efforts and to figure out, for example, if an underage child is being sexually exploited, maybe that should be prioritized over labor exploitation of an older man. We found in this research that there is in fact a high correlation between the type of exploitation, the country, and the gender. A second study that I'm working on right now is to do geospatial analysis of the same data set. This is not yet published, but I do have some materials available online that I've shared. I am currently analyzing this same data set using geospatial analysis to understand any geographical trends, such as migration from certain countries to different countries where that may be applicable. The third project that I have been engaged in recently, which was just kicked off a couple of weeks ago, is a National Science Foundation supported grant led by a group of researchers here in the United States. This group is a multidisciplinary research team of criminal justice professionals, academic researchers, and also the private sectors. And our goals are to develop a holistic approach to examine the role of information technology in the context specifically of domestic sex trafficking. You can, if you're interested, we have a website that was recently built, and that's the first QR code on my slide here. One topic that has come up that I'm personally really interested in is looking at network analysis and just hoping to explore and find different patterns in the actual trafficking network that could maybe then be replicated for various rescue and even prevention efforts. Another area is that we recently completed with a team of pretty much international researchers and experts was the Delta 8.7 work that we've done with the Delta 8.7 and the UN, where we worked to develop evidence-based policy recommendations to achieve the target 8.7 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is about ending forced labor, modern slavery, human trafficking, and child labor. Our findings were just recently published, and the team has shared a very useful presentation about it. It's available for everybody to review. Again, that's the second QR code. If anybody is interested, please feel free to check on it. There were 3 different working groups. I was in the markets working group, trying to focus on certain aspects of the market and how trafficking works on the market sense. The 5th project that I'm engaged in and hoping to get a deeper dive into once my dissertation is finalized. This is kind of a complex project. I'm hoping to do a mixed methods research study for this one. I have already started some conversations, but this is just a whole complex study that I'm trying to implement. This is related to the question of how can we develop appropriate technology policies and how can we regulate the technology realm to protect the vulnerable. I have been really curious about this question because of a certain law here in the United States, Sister FOSTA, which was passed a couple of years ago with the goals to curb trafficking in the tech realm. And it pretty much changes how the internet is thought about, and holds internet services providers who allow third party to post content to monitor and filter those ads to make sure that there's no human trafficking happening on their websites. Now, this is a very, very complicated and very, very controversial law because it's just simply very difficult to differentiate between voluntary sex work and victimhood. And there's a lot of different aspects. So what I'm really trying to do here is to get the different perspectives of actual victims and sex workers to understand how this is really affecting them. Also, alongside of these general questions and just related to the policies and regulations of technology, what can or cannot the private industry do, and what should or shouldn't they do to engage in the tech realm? Should the private industry be really responsible for monitoring these ads? Is this really feasible? Are there any better ways to do this? And there's just a lot of different questions that can be raised as it relates to this specific topic. And finally, really my ultimate goal with this research and just the work that I have been doing for this specific topic is I have been engaged with some apprenticeship programs here in St. Louis, where I live. And it seems like apprenticeship programs have been very successful to allow people with maybe limited opportunities to break into the technology industry and just take lucrative jobs where they can grow and have great careers and successes. So I'd really like to translate that into an apprenticeship program specifically for victims so that they can build valuable skill sets in tech, engineering, all kinds of coding, maybe project management, anything that they really would be interested or skilled in, so that they can enter the technology workforce and break the cycle of exploitation. Unfortunately, trafficking victims it takes 6 to 7 tries for law enforcement and all kinds of anti-trafficking organizations to get involved and to try to save them from the trafficking situation. This is because first of all, they sometimes don't even realize that their situation is so bad. And second, even when they get approached by law enforcement, they are sometimes still attached to their traffickers. They are scared. They maybe don't have any other opportunities. Once they get out, they have nowhere to go. They have no family. They have no friends to rely on. They have nowhere to go. And they have no opportunities once they get out of the life to go and continue having some kind of success or successful career or job. So oftentimes it takes multiple attempts for anti-trafficking organizations to get a victim out of their horrible situation. So what does this really have to do with this specific conference and the African continent? Obviously, we're talking about the good use of technology here, but we're talking about mostly the African continent. So trafficking is actually a really huge issue in Africa, mostly in labor exploitation and forced marriages, but sex trafficking is also certainly high. For example, it's most prevalent in Africa with 7.6 per thousand people. For forced labor itself, Africa is the third in the list after Asia Pacific and Europe and Central Asia regions, with 2.8 people exploited for forced labor per thousand. Forced marriage is, again, the highest in Africa, with 4.8 people per 1,000 people being exploited for specifically forced marriages. 23% of all modern slavery victims all over the world were actually located in the Africa region. This is just second after Asia. There are various examples that are probably very well known among the participants of this conference. But just to mention a few, the mining industry is really prone to child labor and migrant workers who get exploited. As an example, for gold mining in Burkina Faso, the DRC, Ethiopia, Ghana, or Nigeria, and there's other countries that I could list, or for example, the cobalt mines in the DRC. Sex trafficking is also a problem. Oftentimes we hear about Nigerian victims getting exploited in Europe or even in African mining camps with the promises of, certain jobs overseas. And oftentimes voodoo rituals are being used to hold them in these types of situations. Finally, the role of organized crime and, of course, armed conflict is very important if we're talking about child soldiers and all kinds of different horrific situations that can happen. So just to think about the future and some maybe collaboration or topic areas where I see that there are opportunities. So first of all, data and collaboration would be very crucial in this region. Safe and robust methods for data collection and sharing are very important. Unfortunately, just finding data about trafficking is very difficult. I mean, just the nature of the problem, being an underground kind of situation. Also, there's no standard data collection in the world. Every organization may be doing it their own way. Every country may be doing it their own way. Even there's country differences. Some countries spend a lot of time and effort and money in trying to fix this problem. And then unfortunately in Africa, there's a lot of countries that have not even met the basic requirements based on international expectations. Multidisciplinary, regional and global collaboration, cross-border collaboration would be very important for all this information sharing and just working together. If we're thinking about cross-border rescue, collaborating with the different nations would be very important for these efforts to be successful, especially when we're thinking about cross-border organized crimes and et cetera. Some future directions that we could think about are, for example, the applications that could track the supply chain itself. So when we're thinking of the employment of different individuals and just the financial transactions that happen. So when we're thinking about, for example, the mining industry, oftentimes there are organizations who are very have very high expectations to make sure that everybody in their supply chain is following the regulations and not exploiting children, for example, in those mining towns. Additionally, technology has a very important role in strengthening democracy and curbing corruption, especially when we're thinking about encrypted messaging and tools like that. Often these technologies have been used to spread the notion of democracy and different efforts to try to overthrow governments that may be even more corrupt and exploitative. So there's certainly areas that could be studied there. And finally, again, because of my area in the intersection of technology, policy, and trafficking, obviously there are lots of inconsistencies in regulations. So it could be very interesting to study the different national level laws and compare with the international expectations and agreements that have been signed and promised, and to see how and what kind of alignments could be made to make sure that different countries are actually collaborating and really doing the needed to be able to stop this horrific crime. This is what I had to share with you today. If you have any questions or you would like to learn more and reach out to me, please feel free to do so. My contact information is below. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter. Please feel free to send me a message. I'd be happy to talk. And if you have any other ideas where the technology shows up in this specific topic, and I'd be happy to talk to you and find areas where we could work together. Again, thank you so much. This was Ana Maria Sacconi. Have a great rest of your day.